So I think when it comes to Schoolboy Q, I'm on a completely different wavelength to everyone else. Usually I think his best songs are what people don't consider to be that good. I like Habits and Contradictions more than most people. I think it's actually his best album. Everyone seems to disagree, so I was going into this review thinking I'm going to end up with a completely different opinion to everyone else. But I don't know if that's going to be the case, actually. While absolutely no one seems to agree with me when I say Oxymoron was kind of mediocre, I think most people will agree with me when I say CrasH Talk is pretty bad. For me, my biggest issue with Schoolboy Q is that his consistency in his albums is really poor. You get one great song and then you get like 3 mediocre songs, or then you'll get one random terrible song just scattered in the mix. And then it's followed up by maybe a great banger, and then it's just like 3 mediocre songs in a row. And yet this album doesn't have any high points. Like, there's no collard greens, there's no groovy Tony, there's just Num Num Juice, which is decent, but I would never go back to listen to this song ever, to be honest, because it's just not that strong of a highlight. I'll give Dangerous some props too, because I think Kid Cudi's feature is actually really quite good. I like his singing on the hook, and the overall beat as well, and the instrumental sounds pretty nice. There's nothing really going on here that really perks my ears up in any particular way that makes me go wow, but it's at least decent to listen to. And 21 Savage is essentially doing what he usually does on the track Floating. I at least like this track for its instrumental again. He's not really doing anything new, 21 Savage here, but it's a pretty solid feature in comparison to most of the other features on this album, which don't land at all. And another thing that falls flat on its face on this album is the hooks, which is why I can't really say I love Floating as a song, because I think the chorus is pretty weak. But near enough every other chorus on this album is not just weak, but almost insufferable or terrible. The Ty Dolla $ign hook on Lies sounds really like trendy and trashy, and as if it's trying to be built for radio airplay. Like, that is all I hear when I hear that song. It sounds like 2015 mainstream hip-hop, which is kind of like what he did on the song Studio. I always thought that song was really like blatantly attempting to sound like everything else on the radio, and this is that same thing with Lies. A YG feature, which is just not really particularly all that interesting to me. Lyrically, the song just really doesn't get me either. Like, most of the lyrics across this album, again, are either really bad or just passable and just kind of like go over my head, because it's just nothing noteworthy. I don't really need to go into detail about Chopsticks at this point, really, because the people that have heard it know what it's about. Lyrically, it's so poor. The fucking chopsticks being a fucking like simile or metaphor for legs is got to be the worst thing you could ever come up with. Jesus Christ. And actually, to be honest, I don't hate the hook from Travis Scott. I think it's nice, to be honest. I think it sounds pretty nice. It works well with the flow and the beat of the song. It's just the lyrics. The lyrics, man, are just awful. Worst hook on the album's got to be 5200 or 5200, man. The fucking whip, whip, whip till I stain on ya. That fucking flute that's laced into the beat. It's so terrible. Like, that's the worst incorporation of a flute on like a hip hop song I think I've heard in a long time. Like, of course we heard it in Future's big hit Mask Off. It sounded pretty nice. It worked well. I'm pretty sure Playboy Carti's used it on a few of his singles. I can't quite think of the name off the top of my head right now, but again, it worked well for what he was going for. But here it's just so sloppy. It just does not fit at all. There's a similar problem with CrasH as well, where the beat is actually pretty hard. It has a bit of a bounce to it. I quite like it, but then in the beat, every so often there's this random voice that's like, oh. It's just so randomly placed. I just don't get his mindset with this. It wasn't something I noticed on first listen, but when I listened closely a few more times, I was just like, what is he doing? The track Drunk is also a song which has a really weak hook, in my opinion, with that I ain't really drunk, I ain't really drunk. It also features Black, the R&B singer, who It doesn't really do anything like particularly bad on this song. It's just really kind of vibey, and it's very much in the style that he makes his own music, which doesn't really interest me. It's that really like down tempo R&B that just has no pulse or no soul to it whatsoever. And this song essentially is in that vein too. The track Drunk is also a song which has a really weak hook in my opinion with the I ain't really drunk, I ain't really drunk. It also features Black, the R&B singer, who it doesn't really do anything like particularly bad on this song. It's just really kind of vibey, and it's very much in the style that he makes his own music, which doesn't really interest me. It's that really like down tempo R&B that just has no pulse or no soul to it whatsoever. And this song essentially is in that vein too. It's just very moody, and I don't think ScHoolboy Q fully matches this aesthetic. Honestly, I feel like he's just so much better across other instrumentals, and this one doesn't really quite fit. The awful hooks somehow don't end there though. We've got the track Water with Lil Baby. Really weak hook here again, and I just hate ScHoolboy Q's flow across the verses here. He's just doing this like 8-8 at the end of every line. It just sounds really lazy. Sounds like he half-assed it the whole way through. Like there's barely any effort put into the lines. Not really clever wordplay coming through either. It just sounds sad to hear him this lazy. That little ad-lib on the chorus as well with the H2O is so bad as well. What is the point of this song? I just don't understand the chorus with the I got the water. I'm just amazed at how lazy so much of this album comes across. I personally don't have the highest expectations of ScHoolboy Q's work anyway. Like, I've always thought he's best on a feature, and again, I've already brought up how I'm not really that big on most of his albums, but like, even this is far lower than what he's done before. Like, this is the work of someone who isn't putting in anywhere near the amount of effort that they could do. They could be putting out amazing pieces of work, and yet it comes out like this. It's just kind of crazy. The album ends off with the song Attention too, where he's talking about how all these big names in the rap industry, you know, Alchemist, Jay-Z, they all call me amazing. They all call me one of the best of all time, and yet for the songs prior to this final song, you didn't prove that. You've just proved across this album that you're not one of the best, and I just don't understand how bragging about that after this album it is something he thought was worthwhile. You gotta prove it. You can't just say all these people think I'm one of the best of all time when you don't provide any evidence on the album that you are one of the best. This is your worst album yet. It's disappointing. It's disappointing. Yeah, this is a 4 out of 10 from me. I just did not like hardly any of these songs. A lot of them were quite painful as well. Much of it was tedious. The choruses were awful. The rapping from ScHoolboy Q was at times pretty good, but for the most part it just did not hit the landing. Surely his worst album to date, and I'm pretty sure most people will agree with that. Like, given time, people will probably see this as his worst album. So yeah, let me know your thoughts if you actually do like it way more than I did. And thank you for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already. Goodbye. Subscribe.